People, Deluded, I'm back again. Good morning, and I hope you're all doing well and safe on this wet Sunday over here in North London. I'm about to go football. My team has a cup match, so please pray for me. So I'm not too sure if I'll have time to upload this before or after the game, but whenever you're seeing it, I can't imagine too much is going to change, or considering we're getting close to deadline day, it could. Houseem Aouar will not be an Arsenal player. Long story short, a lot of different journalists and media people are reporting that after talks with Lyon or a meeting, he's decided to stay. There's a variety of reasons. Obviously, Arsenal have failed to match whatever Lyon deem an acceptable offer. Obviously, allegedly, he doesn't want to cause friction with Lyon. He doesn't want to take that risk leaving to join a new club in a transitional year with a potential spot in the Euros for France there as well. And he wants to help Lyon qualify for Europe after, last season was quite disastrous for them domestically. I can't fault any of those reasons. I do think he wanted to leave. He's been linked with Barca, Juventus. I do think Arsenal presented an offer, but he's not coming. And you know me, I'm pessimistic on transfers. I would have loved Aouar. Dare I say, I believe the dream for a sec, but it's more of the same, and it's what I say in all my vids, people, and that until I see a man, I see Sky Sports yellow bar, not that they're first on the news, yellow bar, he's travelling in a car, or he's at an airport, or he's holding a shirt, I don't get too enticed. Now, for me, Aouar would have been a dream. You hear that, Arteta was watching him since Man City days. We need a creative man in the midfield, as well as a box-to-box sort of man like Partey, and it's not happening. And for me, it tells me several things. It tells me you don't want to get top four. I don't know who to specifically blame, because I don't blame Arteta, because we know and have known for a while the structure of this club and what we're doing, people, in terms of bringing in players, and we do know where the problems lie in relation to the ownership. But at the same time, Edu and Arteta have known the roles we need to address. They have got more authority in transfers. I have to question, why hasn't this man signed for the club? Why aren't you able to push the boat out, give Lyon whatever they want, pay a bit more, Bob, and bring in a man? Because that's what you got to do with these targets. 9 times out. Do you think Chelsea wanted to pay 90 million for Havertz? In an ideal world, no, because they recognise what he could do for the team, the player he could be, and their ambition. Now, ambition for me isn't always linked with the amount of money you spend. It's about fixing areas, and we know the areas we've needed to fix. You've brought in a centre-half, and Gabriel looks quite good. You've had a little mini revival with certain centre-halves, so that might be why Saliba might be going out on loan. But a big problem is our midfield. Our defence is well documented, but there's 2 forms of defending. You defend from the front, dictating possession and them things there. We haven't got the players to really do that to an acceptable standard. Or you make sure you're able to win the ball back and high up the field, and you've got dynamic midfielders. We haven't got that. Midfield, I'm not going to say midfield is where we're going to live or die in terms of top 4, but it's going to be a big claim. And for me, if you don't get a 2 centre midfielders, 1 minimum, you can forget about top 4. And this is where I'm looking at the club. Again, until the deadline day, I'll shut up, because this could be tactics, or I hope it's tactics from Lyon. Again, Ozil's not the same, but when was there rumours to Ozil becoming an Arsenal player? Then when he became, it happened very, very quickly. But we've known our issues. I've heard for months how we know we've got to be creative in the market. We've got to outsmart the market. Arteta himself came out a few weeks ago and said, we're ready to move in 3 different directions in relation to this COVID stuff. So I hear moving in directions. I see you've brought in Willian, you've brought in Gabriel, but I don't see the areas being addressed at the speed, or just the players being brought in. So then I think the blame has to be shared around. As much as I'm reluctant to blame Arteta, he has spoke a good game. He has said the board are backing him. He does have greater control in the transfer market. Edu, that is your role, as it is with Vinay. We all know the ownership. So everyone has to face questions. And for me, it's not a big deal. I want Aouar, I want Partey, of course. They're good names, they're big names. They entice the fan base, they'll inspire us. But more than that, I want plan B, C targets. Not getting your first choice, or not getting a player you want, is part of life. What are we going to do? We wanted Upamecano for a couple of years, didn't bang, got Gabriel. Where are the other targets? We should have been bringing in players now, because now it's all fun and games coming in on Monday, signing people on Monday. They're still going to adapt. They're going to need their own time, whoever these players are. If we sign players, we're coming into a very difficult round of fixtures now. Forgive me if I'm wrong. We've got Man City next week. In no order, I'm thinking in the next coming weeks, we've got Man City, we've got Leicester to follow. I'm sure we've got got Southampton and Wolves lurking. You've got United. You know, the Spurs derby isn't too long. The games are coming thick and fast. The Europa League has been announced. We need a squad. So, you know, you can't really expect obviously, if you play for any team, you have to hit the ground running. But they're going to come into a madness when the quicker you get signings confirmed, the quicker they can gel into what Arteta wants to do. I have great sympathy for Arteta. I do have to believe that when he took over this role, he knew the issues and he knew there might be money there. You know, Aubameyang, you know, again, he's a player and he can't really dictate, but why would he confirm his future if there wasn't some sort of signings going to be made? Again, promises are comfort to a fool. Things change, but I'm inclined to believe that. For me, not bringing in Aouar, at least I hope that there's still chance, but not bringing in Aouar tells me two things. It tells me that you can't push the boat out and bring in a highly sorted player. You won't go and spend the extra bob, and you don't really want top four. You don't really want to make a bigger push of it, really, if you're not bringing in the targets. You know, Arsenal, you know, how long have you been linked with Partey? It's a bit ridiculous. Cavani to United is completely irrelevant, but it's just come out the woodworks and looks to be done. You know, you can't expect too much. You can't place too much faith in the existing players. I like the El Nenes, I like all of these players, but they're quite limited, and our midfield will let us down. It's a fact. You know, you've seen Torreira will be confirmed as an Atletico Madrid player if and when they sell a player, and he's more or less a player because he's done his medical stuff. I'm sure you've all seen the pictures where he's got the mask on, the athletic mask. So that leads, for me, you know, you don't do these things unless you're bringing in a midfielder, people. Surely you don't do these things. It doesn't make much sense. You know, Torreira's gone. Torreira's gone. Guendouzi's frozen out. You're not using Ozil, which is irrelevant to this convo. The midfield options are not good enough. You know, in isolation, they're not bad players. You've got Xhaka, you know, you've got El Nene, you've got the tried and tested Joe Willock, who's not actually used in that role. You know, whoever I'm forgetting, you must not be that good. You've got Ceballos, who's not technically our player, so how much can you really bed him in and think about stuff? So it's ridiculous. Again, I do think Aouar and Partey were the targets, but I don't think when you look at it, they might say a thing where we brought back Ceballos from a loan, back on loan. We've got Willian who can play in the 10 position. You know, you've technically got Joe, you've got Ozil, who's probably not going to be used. They'll be a bit creative, but we will fall short. This team isn't good enough. Like, it's a fact. So it tells me you delay and you delay and you delay. Like, you know, for Aouar it might be the best thing because you sit on your hands for a year, get your head down, work hard for Lyon, and have a good season leading to the Euros. You'll get the moves to the Bayern Munichs, the Juventuses, the PSGs, the Madrids. You know, all of these teams which in a COVID market seem to have other priorities. So it could work out. For Arsenal, it's an L because you might be able to have a chance next year, but it seemed we had a free run at him. You know, the teams he's been linked with have denied moves. You know, Juventus seem to have other priorities and have brought in a new manager in Pirlo. You know, Real Madrid have said he's a good player, but they don't necessarily want to bring him in. So what can you say, people? You had a free run at him. Now you don't. He was messing around. You offered 30 million for Guendouzi. Apparently they wanted 45, 50 million euros. You should have structured it in a way that they should have got it. I mean, reports coming out, people. Romano has said Lyon have stopped negotiations with Arsenal for Aouar. Arsenal made it clear they won't pay 50 million euros plus add-ons, 60 million in total. Asked by Olas, and Lyon told Arsenal that the deal is over. There was no offer from PSG, Madrid or Juventus. Arsenal was the only chance. Now again, this could be tactics to pressure us, but I think it's confirmed that it's done. Romano also said Arsenal have never been confident today or on the last few days just because Olas always asks for 50 million euros plus add-ons. Arsenal's last bid was 38 million plus add-ons. They were prepared to try again on the next 48, sorry, but not for 50 million plus add-ons. That's why Lyon considered the talks off. And again, if you want the player, you pay the money. Mohamed Boufhafsli, I can never pronounce his name, forgive me, also corresponded with that and said, Aouar has just come out of a meeting with Lyon. Aouar had just announced to the staff that he remains at Lyon despite offers from Arsenal and concrete interest from Juventus and PSG. The player decided to stay the season with Lyon. Now, I think, personally, before I get on to that, I think Arteta can convince players to come and stay at this club. He's convinced Gabriel, he's kept Aubameyang. But to play devil's advocate, as much as I'm with Arteta, you know, have you failed to convince the player? Because we've spoken to his entourage. You know, if you really sold him a good enough project and whatnot, would he not force a move? I get that he doesn't want to burn his bridges at Lyon. They've given him a lot. I get that he wants to focus on his season and things like that. But if he was able to entice that man enough, you know, he'd make it happen. He would do his bit. You know, if he forced his move a bit, maybe Olas gets a bit annoyed and says, you know what, I want 50 million, but this guy's being a twat. Let's get him out of the club. I might take 45. So are you convincing him enough enough as a manager? How are you convincing him enough as a club? For me, it's concerning because I've been hearing for the last 2 years we need to fix up the squad. We need a midfielder. Arteta himself has spoken about wanting to dominate possession and things. Simply don't have the profile of players. Do I think we have the profile of players to have more of a push at the top four? Yes, but we'll fall short. Because you look at the midfield, you know, midfield is a form of a defence, and you've brought in better defensive targets, whether Saliba's going to stay or not, and it's just an improvement. Our midfield is limited, you know, they don't create, they're not dynamic, they're not switched on the most defensively, you know. You look at Arsenal's midfielders, you look at them in isolation, who's really a specialist, you know. Xhaka is a number 6 and whatnot, and then there's a box-to-box midfielder, you know. Guendouzi, you might say similar, but together, what are they? These combinations of midfielders aren't levels. It's as simple as that, you know. Again, you put the money on the table, you do enough job convincing, you get the player. Arsenal, again, people, it kind of carries on. It kind of, Romano kind of carries on. All the people I've spoken about before kind of carry on what Julian Laurent said, people. Julian Laurent said Arsenal will not sign Houseem Aouar. They will try to get Jorginho, though. And I'll say the one consolation, people, is whether it's been Julian Laurent's, whether it's been David Ornstein to a degree, whether it's whoever it's been, I'm not going to say they're not credible because they've got more contacts than I could ever wish for. But not even just Aouar. I'm not saying we're going to sign Aouar. I do think transfers have moved away from this, but I do think this transfer window has shown you that journalists really are just winging it. It's like everybody's confirming the same thing. You know, when you have seen it flipped on its head, certain players that these three said were going to other clubs have flipped it on its head and gone elsewhere. You know, Gabriel was a Chelsea player according to Julian Laurent at a point, and now look at the club he plays for. Pepe wasn't an Arsenal player at one point, and look who he plays for. So we'll have to see, man. Apparently we will try to get Jorginho on loan. I don't mind Jorginho, he's not a bad player, but why would Chelsea want to let their player go when they can't bring in Declan Rice or anything like that? You know, I think he'd be a replacement for Xhaka, but I don't see how he complements the side, really. You know, him and Xhaka would be lacking going backwards. They'll be good on the ball. And it screams panic to me, you know. Like I said, not getting your targets is fine, but can you go and get your other targets? Have you got a plan C, D, E, F targets in mind? Because you must have been scouting midfielders. Let's say you found 20, there must be a list of 5 real and genuine names you could see bringing in. You know, there has to be a full plan. There has to be different plans, and it does appear that we're winging it. The only consolation is that I'm not involved in negotiations or don't work for the club, but it doesn't seem promising in that. Doesn't seem promising on the Thomas Partey front, who they want to their release. They want his release clause paid, and he played against Villarreal. Can't lie, I watched that game. It was quite boring, but he got to show some of his passes. And as much as I talk about athleticism, he can pass the ball and clip it over the top early, and that's what we need if we want top 4. It's disappointing. Let's see what Arsenal can do, which I'm not gonna, you know, hold my breath. But on that note, people, DG, I'm out. Like, comment and subscribe. And a side note, unlike Arsenal, I get the job done because my battery's almost about to die and we've been here for 13 minutes and I've just about got it done. Hopefully, like I said, we do some business. You know, until the end of the window, I'm going to shut up. But we've done the least business. You know, Spurs have done better business than us. Chelsea have done better business than us. Do you get it? It's a bit ridiculous. Liverpool have added Thiago. Teams below us have added some quality. Yeah, we've brought in Gabriel. What else have we done? Williams complemented the side. You know, you spent 14 million on Marie. Could that 14 extra million you spent making him permanent gone towards making a difference between getting Aouar or not? Now, I know the two aren't interlinked, but I'm just playing devil's advocate. People, it's been a pleasure, but I'm going to get out of here. Deluded.